Coming up in the program, Paws for Life, it's kitten season. Rain offers little relief to farmers and lunch orders for Hamilton. Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Tuesday the 3rd of February. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Despite rain at the weekend and yesterday, Waikato and South Auckland farmers are being encouraged to put their hands up promptly if they need advice due to the ongoing very dry conditions in the region. Soil moisture levels are currently even lower than during last year's extended Big Dry. This follows a 2014 to 15 summer that has been very high in temperatures and significant wind. The low soil moisture means the ability of pasture to grow is reduced, although there is plenty of supplementary feed about for stock at present, following a good spring, and farmers generally are reported to be coping. But the dry soil conditions are exacerbated by the fact that rivers around the region are flowing lower than usual due to lower than average rainfall over winter, meaning some consented irrigation take restrictions have started to take effect, particularly in the Waihao-Piako catchments, and could become more widespread if adequate rainfall does not occur. A lower dairy payout is also aggravating the financial impact on farmers as the dry conditions begin to impact pasture quality and milk production. Officials from Auckland Council, Waikato Regional Council, Dairy NZ, Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Ministry for Primary Industries, Waikato Rural Support Trust and Federated Farmers convened last Friday to collectively review conditions and how farmers were coping. A building at Tauronga's historic village has deteriorated so badly that tenants are being restricted over where they can go. The fire risk at one tenanted building in particular has seen the mezzanine floor closed off and tenants denied access, says the council's manager for community development, Megan Holmes. The news emerged in a reply to a question from Councillor Catherine Stewart. In a council meeting, Catherine asked about hundreds of thousands of dollars that needs to be sent to fix issues revealed by a recent survey of the village. 7 of the village's many buildings were surveyed. 2 of them, Detour Theatre and the Incubator, are considered places of assembly and are also considered a high risk. It's noisy, full of dirt and nestled in the Tecked All-Terrain Park. But most importantly, it's a place the Tauranga Motorcycle Club can call home. This weekend, the club happily marked the end of a long journey with a special open day, with Tauranga City and Western Bay Plenty mayors Stuart Crosby and Ross Patterson cutting the official ribbon. From start to finish, the club has spent nearly 2 years planning and developing the track after signing the lease of the 40-hectare section of land from Western Bay Plenty District Council in February 2013. Motorcyclists travelling between Waihi and Tairoa on State Highway 25 will be detoured through Whangamata from next week while contractors repair a bridge. The Moana Anu River Bridge, also known as the Wentworth Bridge, near the intersection of Tairoa Road and Port Road, will be closed to all traffic from 6 a.m. on Tuesday, February the 9th until 5 p.m. Friday, March the 13th. Now, for our region's weather, Hamilton, your Wednesday will be mostly cloudy with a few showers. Westerly strengthening there, your expected high is 25 and an overnight low of 15. Waikato, fine spells with scattered showers developing in the morning and a strengthening westerly in most parts. Paeroa 27 and 15, Matamata 24 and 15, Te Aomutu 25 and 15, Tokoroa 22 and 15. Tauranga, fine spells with westerly strengthening, your expected high is 26 and an overnight low of 18. The rest of the bay, fine spells, a few evening showers about the eastern ranges. Westerlies 24 and 17 are your expected temperatures to Poki. Looking to the seas now for the marine forecast. West Coast, Raglan, northwest 20 knots, becoming a southwest of 15 knots in the morning. Moderate sea easing, southwest swell rising to 2 metres, and then a northwest swell of 1 metre easing. High tide is 11:29 a.m. East Coast Bay of Plenty, westerly 10 knots turning to a northwest of 15 knots in the morning and rising to 20 knots in the afternoon. Sea becoming moderate in the afternoon, and it's mostly fine out there. Your high tide in Tauranga is 8:32. Still to come in the program, the new Tudor garden at Hamilton Gardens, but lunchboxes for kids you can pre-order. Welcome back to Central News on TV Central. Lunch orders began in 6 schools in Hamilton late in 2014 with an aim to create easy solutions for schools and parents that enables all children access to healthy, cost-effective school lunches. Anne-Marie spoke with co-founder Rick Forey to find out why they saw a need to begin lunch orders.
I was involved with a couple of smaller school canteens before that, and it was probably out of the frustration of not being able to deliver the outcomes I wanted, and I was thinking there has to be a better way. We've got to be able to do this in a way that kind of brings it into the 21st century. I found some of the problems were not being able to really prepare healthy, fresh food every day in that small amount of time in a school canteen. Not being able to make it affordable because you didn't have the quantity really to keep it viable, and probably just the archaic technology because mums would come in and they would write in the back of, or dads, write in the back of envelopes and put little coins in, and then the canteen operator would have to count it and see if it's the right change, and it was just a drama taking up a lot of time. So lunch orders really is an answer to those frustrations.
Does lunch orders have a goal?
First of all, I think we want to educate and empower children to make really healthy choices. Our favourite feedback is when parents talk to us about how someone who would never eat this kind of food loved their lunch, and so that gives us a lot of satisfaction. The second goal would be, as a business, to become the leading provider of school lunches nationwide, and so that's something that we would like to work on as we go and grow bigger.
How are you going to achieve this?
The model we've launched in Hamilton, and we are looking to perfect it here and really get positive feedback and listen to the community, what works, listen to the schools, and then slowly but surely open other markets as we go forward.
Tell me about the menu. What types of food are on offer?
So we have a big variety of food and options that children and parents can choose from. Ranging from hot foods like macaroni and cheese, shepherd's pie, all of course made fresh with some nice vegetables kind of hidden away so no one suspects anything. And then colder food like wraps and sandwiches, and we have an option for children to make their own sandwich, kind of like a Subway initiative where they can go online, choose their filling, choose what bread they want, what kind of, if it's a wrap or a pita or a sub, and we find that when they're in control of that process, they will eat whatever they've chosen.
What's your most popular food item?
The smoothie. The smoothie has been our most favourite, and we have sold many smoothies, and they are delicious, and it's a great way to get nourishment and nutrition for children.
I'd have to say in my household it's the smoothie and mac cheese.
There you go, and I think that's quite reflective of most households.
How many schools are you in Hamilton now?
So we started with a pilot term 4 last year with 6 schools, and now starting February, the start of school, we'll be in 16 different schools, so that's quite a big jump.
Big jump.
Yeah.
So how does it work?
Parents go online, create an account for themselves and add their children. They're able to browse our menu, choose what kind of food item they would like to place, or most ideally sit with the child and choose the food together. They then choose their delivery date, and that then gets processed through an online payment system. We get the orders, we make them on the morning and then deliver them by either morning tea or lunchtime.
So the hot food is still hot?
The hot food comes really well packaged and remains, warm and just ready to be eaten.
To find out more or to place an order, go to lunchorders.co.nz. You can also find them on Facebook. In our next story, kitten season is upon us, which means an influx of unwanted furry little creatures to animal shelters such as Paws for Life in Hamilton. Since 2010, they have been taking in unwanted animals and currently have kittens galore at their base in Hamilton. Anne-Marie spoke with manager Rachel Ma to find out why Paws for Life began.
Paws for Life started 5 years ago because there is a need in the community for animals to go somewhere. So we have our SPCA, and at that time there weren't many local shelters, but there were too many animals and nowhere for them to go. So we started with one mum and kittens, and it expanded and now we can't stop. There is such a need.
Tell me about your philosophy.
Our philosophy is to rescue, rehabilitate and rehome any animal in need, whether it be a kitten or a cat or a dog or a puppy. We've had livestock come through. Whatever needs help, we will find a solution.
Tell me about the 5 freedoms.
So the 5 freedoms is part of the Animal Welfare Act, and it basically categorises that animals should not be short on food, water, shelter. They should be able to display natural behaviours. So if you've got a chained dog, they can't display natural behaviours. And freedom from injury and distress and fear. So no animal, really, our domesticated pets are not set up or geared up to survive in our built-up communities naturally because they're domesticated. So they end up causing problems. So we need to get them off the street, and desexing is usually the cause and the solution.
What types of animals do you help?
We have helped everything: goats, kittens, cats, dogs, puppies, hedgehogs, birds, calves. I don't think there's anything we haven't found a home for.
Have you got any idea of how many you've helped since you began?
Well over 2,000.
And how does the process work? What happens when an animal comes to you?
So initially we usually get phone calls or referrals from other agencies, so it could be just somebody that's found out about us, or referrals from local councils, vets, pet stores, anybody sort of in the industry. So they might have a cat and kittens under their deck, and it's not always possible to take on every stray that crosses your path. So then we would bring them in and everybody gets assessed, which is what the crates are for. So if a new cat would go into a crate, they would settle in, see how the day goes in here, because we have vacuum cleaners and things going. And then it's off to the vet and we get a full checkup. So our philosophy is whatever they need, they get. So if they need desexing, vaccinations, flea, worming, dentals. We had one cat once that was kicked in the chest, and she had newborn kittens, and she actually had a ruptured chest, if you like. So she had major surgery to have that fixed. We can't spend amounts on cats that are, we're not going to get an end result for. So there is a euthanasia side of it as well. But basically whatever the animal's needs are as determined by our vet is what they get.
You must have a fantastic vet.
Our vets are amazing. We use exclusively Vet Focus in Glenview. I can call them at any time. I can drop in at any time. They are always there for advice. They're honest with me, and between us and them, we get the right solution sorted for each animal.
How are you funded?
Paws for Life is completely donations. So our food is donated, our gear is donated, everything that people like to contribute. And I didn't know this before I started Paws for Life being a charity. I didn't know that people like to give so much. So if they can provide money, that's great. If they can provide just a bag of food, even that helps. So it's all donations, and then we adopt out our animals as well.
To find out more about Paws for Life, check out their Facebook page, full of photos of gorgeous animals that need a new home. Facebook.com/Paws for Life, that's with the number 4. You can also find out ways to donate at their website, pawsforlife.co.nz. Coming up after the break, the Tudor Garden at Hamilton Gardens. Welcome back to Central News. Gardeners have always been inspired from different forms of fantasy. The award-winning Hamilton Gardens Fantasy Collections explore different aspects of this theme. Cultural, botanical, artistic and historical fantasy are all represented. The latest garden, the Tudor Garden, recently opened. Anne-Marie spoke with Hamilton Gardens director Dr. Peter Sergel about the most recent in a series of themed gardens and how the Tudor period will be reflected in the garden.
Well, it was a period really after the War of the Roses. It was a period where there was a bit more security, so they didn't have to have fortified homes. And there was a lot of wealth coming in with the wool trade and other things. So there was this elite aristocracy who could afford elaborate gardens with elaborate knot gardens and sculptures and garden houses and arbours.
Historically, Tudor Gardens featured statues of mythical beasts. How is this incorporated into Hamilton Gardens' Tudor Garden?
Well, it was very common in Tudor Gardens to have beasts on poles, usually holding coats of arms. They were right into heraldry in a big way. And at the time, not all of them were fantasy beasts, but they were right through the gardens. They had hundreds of the things. And we know of, no Tudor gardens have survived. And the only example we know where someone has tried to recreate those beasts is at Hampton Court. So it's really unusual to have that sort of reconstruction of a Tudor garden.
So what are the beasts at Hamilton Gardens going to be holding?
Well, they hold a coat of arms. And really it's 8 of the rock stars of the Tudor period. The Francis Drake and Elizabeth and Henry VIII and Mary Queen of Scots and Francis Bacon and people like that, 8 of the different figures.
16th century aristocracy had a fascination with geometric patterns and symbolism. Is this reflected in the Tudor garden?
Well, not a lot so much in our garden. They had symbols. For example, they'd often have a statue of Diana representing Queen Elizabeth. She liked to be compared to the goddess Diana. And quite a lot of those gardens, they had symbolism to say they were Catholic without being, it was a bit dangerous being a Catholic, but you could have plants that had Catholic symbolism. Actually, in fact, while I was doing the research, I discovered a relation of mine, ancestor, called Hawkins, who was Catholic, and they gave the examples of the different symbolism he had in his garden, where the people in the know could see they were Catholics, but others couldn't. Yeah.
Would it be a specific type of tree or plant?
Yes, I just can't remember all the ones.
Were the knot gardens linked?
Yeah, that's very typical. So the garden we've made is a sort of very, very typical privy garden, where it was very much for looking at from a pavilion or from the house, rather than having plays or social events in it. And it was characterised by 4 beds of a knot garden, a raised gallery, you could look down on it, often a pavilion in the corner of that, and arbours. They were pretty keen on arbours covered in climbers, because it was a sign of being an aristocrat, that you had a pale complexion. If you had a good tan, you were a peasant, so they were very keen in the gardens to have sheltered places they could get out of the sun.
Where did the design come from for the knot garden?
We've used a whole lot of elements from different Tudor gardens and records of those. The knot garden design was designed by a mathematician called Thomas Hill, or he called himself Didymus Mountain at that time. And at the Tudor time, he produced books with all these different designs, and one of them, the one we've used, is very famous. It's a very, very typical knot garden. And they were based off Celtic knots, so it was quite an English tradition coming through there.
And when did planting begin?
Last year mostly, yeah.
Tell me about the special characteristics of a knot garden. Do all the plants have to intertwine?
Oh no, there were a whole variety of kinds of knot garden. Some were open and some had bulbs and plants filling the gaps. But what we've used, that they commonly used, was a different coloured mulch. So we've got broken bricks, red bricks, and coal, which give a red and black infill. But they also use sand and broken glass and all sorts of things to create these different patterns, different colours.
So what else can people expect to see in Hamilton Gardens' Tudor Garden?
Well, it's quite different. You know, at Hamilton Gardens we're telling the story of gardens through history, and it's just a very wide variety of gardens. Every corner you turn you don't quite know what you're going to strike, and this garden is very different from all the other gardens we've made, which is one reason we selected it. It still looks a bit raw, you know, there's just structures. We're literally finishing it today, the opening, and it needs plants. You know, the climbers going over the arbour, the roses climbing over the Elizabethan wall, the base of the pavilion with plants on it. So it will be softened. It'll look better in a year or two with that growth.
What's the next garden we can expect to see completed?
Council is currently looking at raising funds for increasing the rate of development, and the hope is to make 3 or 4 gardens in the next 3 years, and that'll depend on resources available. And the first one of those to be finished would be the concept garden.
I understand there's a fundraiser also for the Catherine Mansfield Garden. That's one that's proving to be very popular in concept.
Yes, well, there's the Catherine Mansfield Garden, which is a recreation of early 19th century New Zealand garden, but set up for the garden party that Catherine Mansfield describes in her story, The Garden Party. So really recreating that scene in her story. The concept garden, there's a picturesque garden, and then probably the last one to be finished in that group will be the Surrealist Garden.
Tell me about that.
The Surrealist Garden. Well, everything in it 5 times the normal size. Yeah, and all sorts of unusual things in it, but the main feature is huge topiary figures, and some of those will move, so it's quite unlike. It's a bit different from all the other gardens at Hamilton Gardens, which are based on historic styles. This is really just a children's fun garden, really.
It sounds fantastic. Hamilton Gardens recently received the International Garden of the Year award. Does that accolade confirm that your plans for development are on the right track?
Yes, it gives us a lot more confidence that the concept we've got for the gardens is unique. We really can't find another example in the world, and that was given to us by the International Garden Tourist Network and professors and garden experts who travel around the world looking at gardens. And the fact that they thought it was an original concept gives us more confidence about that. And it's certainly been great publicity. The numbers this summer have noticeably gone up.
Are the numbers up locally, or is it overseas tourists?
We don't have accurate figures, but from the people in our front desk, it seems to be mainly Aucklanders and Australians. That's the big growth area.
Make sure you take a look at the Tudor Garden for yourself at Hamilton Gardens, Cobham Drive, Hamilton. That is us for today. If you'd like to contact us, you can via email, news@tvcentral.co.nz, or Facebook, centralnews.tv. Join me again tomorrow night for more stories from the Waikato and the Bay of Plenty. I'm Hilary Entwistle. I hope you have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.